Clara Hayes drove the tip of her knife into the raw hole in the stranger's shoulder and dug for the bullet with her bare fingers. The man's body arched off the floorboards. A scream tore out of him that didn't sound like any noise a grown man should make. Blood poured over her knuckles, over her wrists, soaking the sleeves of a gray dress she hadn't washed in 9 days. She didn't stop. Couldn't. Her 9-year-old daughter stood 3 feet behind her, both small hands clamped over her mouth. "Mama." "Don't look, Lily. Don't you dare look." Before we go one step further into Clara's story, do me a kindness and tap that subscribe button. Ring the little bell so you don't miss a single chapter of what's coming. And tell me in the comments, what town, what city, what country are you watching from tonight? I want to know how far this story has traveled before the sun comes up. Now, let's ride back a few hours back to a dusty stretch of Texas prairie in the summer of 1878 and meet the woman who made one choice that pulled her straight into the fire. The wind had been blowing hot since sunup. Clara had walked out to the creek with a bucket in one hand and her daughter's hand in the other, and she had not spoken more than 6 words the whole way. 6 years of running taught a woman to keep her voice small, keep her shadow small, keep her daughter smaller. "Mama." You were humming." "Wasn't." "Were too. That song about the river." "Hush, baby." Lily shaded her eyes. "There's something in the grass yonder." Clara stopped. She felt her jaw go hard before her eyes even found the shape. A body. A man's body. Face down, one boot gone, the other boot caught in a root. A dark stain spreading under his ribs like a second shadow. "Stay here, Lily. Right here. You hear me?" "But Mama." "Right. Here." Clara crossed the grass on legs that wanted to carry her in the opposite direction. Every piece of sense she had was screaming at her. "Turn around. Walk back to the cabin. Bar the door. Pretend you never saw." Because a bleeding man in the grass meant men who did the bleeding would be along any minute, and men who did that kind of bleeding didn't stop at one body. She crouched. She turned him over. He was alive. Barely. A man, maybe 40, dark hair plastered to his forehead, a week of beard, a mouth bitten through on one side. His eyes cracked open, pale blue, pale as winter water set in a sunburned face. "Ma'am," he whispered, "don't talk." "Ma'am, please." "I said don't talk. You're bleedin' worse when you talk." His hand came up slow, searching, found her wrist, held it like a child. "Don't. Leave me out here." Clara's throat closed. "Walk away," something old inside her said. "Walk away, Clara Hayes. You know what trouble looks like. You raised it. You buried it. You ran from it 6 years straight." "Mama!" Lily's voice not where it was supposed to be. Clara turned. Her daughter was right beside her, thin arms, hanging eyes on the man's wound. "I told you to stay put." "He's dying, Mama." "I know he is. So we're gonna help him." It wasn't a question. The child said it the way she said grace over biscuits, flat matter of fact, already decided. Clara looked at her daughter's face and saw herself the way she used to be before. Before the word witch. Before the word murderess. Before the town where she grew up stitched both of those words onto her skin and set her running. "Lily, we're gonna help him, ain't we?" Clara closed her eyes one long second. Then she slid her arms under the stranger's shoulders and heaved. He was 200 pounds of dead weight. She was 110 and tired. The cabin was a quarter-mile off. She made it half that before her legs gave, and she went down hard on one knee with him across her lap. "Ma'am," he rasped, "leave me. I ain't worth the trouble. You let me decide that. You don't know me. Lucky for you. I got enemies who—" "Mister, I ain't a woman short on enemies myself. Save your breath for breathin'." She got him up again. Got him the rest of the way. Lily ran ahead to push the cabin door open, and Clara laid him on the floor because the bed was too soft to work on, and the table was too high for a man his size. She tore his shirt open along the seam. She didn't flinch. She had seen worse. She had done worse if you ask the good people of Millbrook County, though what she had actually done, and what she was accused of doing, had never been the same thing. Lily water, the big kettle, boil it hard. Yes, Mama. And the sewing basket, the little one, the one with the catgut. Yes, Mama. And lock the door after. Lily's hands stopped on the kettle handle. Lock it? Lock it, baby. That was when Clara got her knife out and started the kind of work she hoped never to do again. The man passed out twice. The first time he came up fighting, swinging at shadows, and she had to pin his good arm with her knee and tell him low and even, "You're safe, mister. You're safe. Nobody's gonna touch you but me, and I'm only touching you to keep you above the dirt." He went still, eyes wet, nodded once, passed out again. The second time, she thought she'd lost him. His breath went thin as a thread. Lily was at the foot of him, gripping his ankle like it was a rope she could pull him back with, whispering something Clara couldn't make out. "Lily. Lily, honey. What are you saying?" "I'm telling him he can't go." "Sweetheart." "I'm telling him, Mama don't let people die in our house." Clara kept working. The bullet came out of him in one long red wet movement, and she dropped it in a tin cup with a sound that would stay in her head for the rest of her life. Plink. Small thing. Small lead ball smaller than her thumbnail. Enough to tear a man down. Enough to kill him if she let it. She didn't let it. She sewed him up with catgut the way her grandmother had taught her when she was 9 years old, and her grandmother still had fingers that worked. She packed the wound. She wrapped him. She lifted his head and put a folded quilt under it. And then she sat back on her heels and stared at her red hands, and found to her surprise that she was shaking. "Mama." Lily at her side. "Mama, you're crying." "Ain't." "You are." Clara wiped her face with the back of a hand that left a smear of someone else's blood across her cheekbone. "Go wash up, baby. Fetch me the clean rags off the peg." "Mama." "Go on." She watched her daughter go. Then she looked down at the stranger and said quieter than a whisper, "Mister, if you die on my floor, I swear to every saint I don't believe in, I will never forgive you." He didn't die on her floor. He slept. Hours of it. Dusk came. Dark came. The fever came in around midnight, and Clara sat beside him and wrung cloths out into a basin and laid them across his forehead and his chest, and she kept her voice low when he started to talk. "Rebecca?" "Shh." "Rebecca, don't you leave me again." "Easy, mister." "I wasn't there. I wasn't there." "Easy." "God forgive me, I wasn't there." "Hush now. You're here. You're here with me, and you're breathing, and that's all that's asked of you tonight." His eyes opened a crack. He looked at her like he was trying to place her in a family of faces. "You ain't her." "No, sir." "Who are you?" "Clara." "Clara what?" She paused. Her last name had cost her everything she had ever owned. She gave him half of it. "Hayes. Clara Hayes." His mouth worked around the shape of it. "Clara Hayes, I owe you my life. You don't owe me anything. Go back to sleep." "What's your price?" "My what?" "Your price." His good hand found the edge of the quilt. "Everybody's got one. Name it." A hard laugh got out of her before she could stop it. "Mister, if I had a price, I'd have sold myself 6 years ago and spared my daughter the road." He looked at her a long moment. Even fevered, even gray around the lips, his eyes had something in them that was not a stranger's eyes. "What's your name, mister?" "Samuel." "Samuel what?" "Carter." "Well, Samuel Carter, you close your eyes and you breathe slow and you don't die. Those are my terms. You hear me?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good." He closed his eyes. She thought he was out again. Then, "Clara." "What?" "Who's the little one?" "My daughter." "She yours alone?" "She's mine alone." "Good girl." "Yes, she is." He was asleep before she could answer him properly. Morning came pale and dry. Clara had not slept. Lily had curled up in the rocker with a quilt and one bare foot hanging out, and Clara looked at her child's sleeping face and felt for the first time in longer than she could measure the kind of tired that comes from doing something instead of running from it. Samuel Carter woke at sunup. He tried to sit, gave up, laid back down. "Don't," Clara said from across the room. "I got to see where I am." "You're in my cabin." "Where's your cabin?" "Far enough." "Ma'am?" "Mister, you stay flat." He stayed flat. He watched her move around the one-room cabin for a while, and she let him watch because she had learned a long time ago that a man who watches is not a man about to strike. It was the ones who wouldn't look at you. Those were the ones who meant harm. "How long was I out?" "All night and then some." "The men who done this to me." "I didn't see any men." "They'll be looking." "Let 'em look. This cabin don't show from the road." "You on your own out here?" Clara set a tin cup of water down on the floor beside him. "Drink that slow." "Yes, ma'am." He drank, winced. "You on your own?" "I didn't answer you the first time, Mr. Carter." Reckon that was an answer. He almost smiled. His mouth was too cracked for it to be much of one. "Fair." "Who shot you?" "3 men." "Who paid 'em?" The look he gave her then was the look of a man who had just found out the woman on the other side of the room was not a fool. "What makes you think somebody paid 'em?" "Because you ain't dressed like a man worth robbing, and you ain't built like a man worth jumping. And the only other reason 3 men ride out together after 1 man is somebody with money told 'em to." He stared at her a long time. "You got a sharp mind, Clara Hayes." "I got a sharp mind and a sharp knife and a daughter asleep 10 feet away. So I'll ask you again, who paid 'em?" "Man name of Ezra Calloway." She did not know the name. She filed it away like she filed everything carefully in the place where she kept the things that might kill her later. "And why'd he pay 'em?" "He wants my land." That's a short answer to a long question. It's the whole answer. Mr. Carter, nobody sends 3 men to kill another man over a patch of dirt. It ain't just dirt. It's the only good water in 40 miles south of Red Creek. If he owns my water, he owns every rancher between here and the border. Every last one of 'em bends the knee or dries up. Clara sat slowly on the low stool across from him. "And you wouldn't sell?" "I wouldn't sell." "Even for good money?" "Especially for good money. A man who offers you more than a thing is worth is a man planning to take 10 times that back out of your hide." Clara looked at her hands. The blood was under her fingernails still. She had scrubbed them twice, and it was still there. "Mr. Carter?" "Samuel?" "Mr. Carter, you can heal up here. A week, 2 at the most, and then you're gone." "Clara." "I ain't done. You're gone, and you don't come back, and you don't send anyone, and you don't tell a soul in Red Creek or anywhere else about the woman in the cabin with the little girl. You understand me." "Why?" "Because those are my terms." "Clara." "Mr. Carter, please." He was quiet. His eyes went over her face slow, not the way a man looks at a woman he wants, but the way a man looks at a locked door he's trying to read the lock on. "Somebody hurt you," he said. "Don't." "Somebody hurt you bad." I said don't. "All right. A whole town hurt me. That's all you need to know. A whole town. And when I got out of it alive, I swore on my daughter's head I would never put myself in a town's hand again. So you heal and you go. Those are the terms." "Yes, ma'am." "Say it." "I heal and I go." "Good." Lily stirred in the rocker. "Mama." "Mornin', baby." "He alive?" "He's alive." "Told you." Samuel turned his head on the quilt. "Mornin', little miss." Lily came over with the cautious gravity of a child who had spent too much of her short life watching adults. She stopped 3 feet away and folded her hands in front of her apron. "I'm Lily." "Pleased to know you, Miss Lily. I'm Samuel." "I know," Mama said. "Did your mama tell you I'm much obliged for the savin'?" Lily's eyes went to Clara, then back. "Mama don't take obliged, she just does it." Samuel smiled, and it was a real one this time, in spite of the pain it must have cost him. That so? Yes, sir. Well, Miss Lily, if your mama don't take obliged, I reckon I'll have to owe it to you. Clara cut in fast. Nobody owes anybody. Nobody. You heal, and you go. Lily, come fetch the pail. We need fresh water. Yes, Mama. Outside at the well, Lily worked the handle and said without looking up, He's nice, Mama. You don't know that. I know. You met him for 4 minutes. 4 minutes is enough. Lily. Mama, he called me Miss. Lots of men call little girls Miss. The men in Millbrook didn't. Clara stopped with her hand on the pump. The men in Millbrook called you a she-demon, Lily said, quiet practical. I remember, Mama. I was little, but I remember. And this man looked at me, and he said, Miss Lily, so he's nice. Clara didn't answer. She couldn't. She looked out across the grass hot already at 8 in the morning, and she felt the thing she had been most afraid of her whole adult life crack open, 1 hair's width inside her chest. The thing called hope. She had learned long ago that hope was a trap a woman baited for herself, that it would eat her alive given half a chance. That a mother who wanted a better life for her child was a mother who would walk right into any snare anybody set, and the snares were always set. Lily. Yes'm. You don't get attached. You understand me. Yes'm. He's gonna leave. Yes'm. Say it back to me. He's gonna leave. Good. They carried the bucket in together. 3 days went by. Samuel got stronger by inches. Clara fed him broth and then cornbread, and then on the 4th day a strip of salt pork she had been saving for her own birthday. He asked her once what day of the month it was, and she told him and watched his face and waited to see if it meant anything to him. It didn't. It was just a date. He went back to his broth. On the 5th day he could sit up. On the 6th day he walked to the door and back her hand under his good elbow, his breath coming in short shudders. On the 7th day he sat at her table while she chopped onions and said, Clara. What? Tell me about Millbrook. The knife stopped. No. Clara. I said no. Tell me what they called you. Mr. Carter. Samuel. I don't know you well enough. You pulled a bullet out of me with your bare hands, woman. How well do you need to know a man? Samuel. I don't talk about Millbrook, not to you, not to anyone. That part of my life is dead and buried, and the only reason I didn't carve a stone for it is because I ran out of stone. He nodded slow. He didn't push. That was the thing about him she had started God help her to notice. The not pushing. Most men she had ever known pushed. Her father had pushed. Her husband had pushed right up until the day he stopped pushing by dying. The sheriff in Millbrook had pushed so hard she'd felt his thumbs in her shoulders for a year afterward. But this man sat at her table and asked her a question, and when she said no, he said all right with his whole body and let it be. Samuel? Yes, ma'am. Why'd this Ezra Calloway start coming for you? I told you. The water. That ain't the whole of it. He ran his thumb along the edge of his own coffee cup. No, it ain't the whole of it. Then give me the rest. My wife. Your wife. My wife Rebecca. She died 2 winters back. Fever. The kind that takes everybody in a house one by one. Clara set the knife down. I'm sorry. We had a boy. He went first, then her. I was in San Antonio buying cattle. I came home and my house was quiet and the doctor was on my porch with his hat in his hand, and that was the end of that life. Samuel, Ezra Calloway was at the funeral. He shook my hand at the grave. And a week later at the reading he came to my house with papers already drawn up offering to take the ranch off my hands on account of my grief. Told me a widowed man shouldn't have to look at a house his wife died in. Told me he could get me a fair price. Fair, he said. Fair was 1/3 of what the land was worth. I told him to get off my porch. And he didn't. He did. That day. He came back the next week with a sheriff he owns, and a lawyer he owns, and a preacher he owns. I told him the same thing. He came back the week after that with 3 men. Those 3 men caught me 3 days ago on the road from Wallace Springs and put 2 bullets in me and left me to bleed out in your grass." Clara was quiet a long time. "You should have died, Samuel Carter. I know it. Anybody but my daughter would have walked past you. I know that too, and you still want to go back there. It's my land. It's her grave. It's my boy's grave." "Samuel." "Clara." She picked the knife back up. "Eat your supper." "Clara, eat." He ate. She chopped. Lily came in from the yard humming that same song about the river, and the sun went low over the prairie, and 3 people who were not a family sat down at a table as if they were one. That night, after Lily was asleep, Samuel said from his pallet on the floor, "Clara Hayes, come back with me." She had been braiding her hair. Her hand stopped. "What?" "Come back with me. You and the girl. I got a house. A good house bigger than this. I got land. I got people who work for me who would die for me, and they'd die for you too once they knew you. You don't have to hide out here. You don't have to jump every time a horse passes on the road. Samuel, you saved my life, woman. Let me save yours. I don't need savin'. No, you don't, but your girl does." That hit her like a fist. Her braid came loose in her fingers. "Don't use Lily." "I ain't using her. I'm telling you the truth. You got a bright girl out there and she's growing up in a 1-room cabin with no school, no neighbor children, no doctor. If the fever comes through, no sheriff if a bad man walks up to the door. You saved me, Clara. Let me build you a roof that don't leak." "The last roof I trusted fell on me." "I know. You don't know. You don't know the half of it." "Then tell me." "I can't." "Tell me one piece of it, just one." Clara pressed the heels of her hands into her eyes. When she spoke, her voice was smaller than she had let it be in 6 years. "They called me a witch, Samuel Carter, a whole town. They called me a witch because a baby died in my arms that I had done everything human hands could do to save, and the baby's mother was the sheriff's sister, and the sheriff needed somebody to blame, and I was handy. They dragged me to the square. They cut my hair off in front of my daughter. They would have burned me if my father hadn't got me out on a wagon at midnight with a rifle across his knees. My father's dead now. Everyone who vouched for me is dead now. And if I walk into one more town, Samuel, one more town with one more sheriff, and one more frightened fool with a torch, I will not come out the other side. Do you understand me?" The cabin was quiet a long time. "Clara?" "What?" "I understand you." "Good. Come with me anyway." Her eyes flew open. "What did you just say to me?" "Come with me anyway. Red Creek ain't Millbrook. My people ain't your people. And whoever comes for you, Clara Hayes, is going to have to come through me first, and I am a harder man to get through than you might think from looking at me bleeding on your floor." "Samuel, say yes, Clara." "No." "Say yes." "No." "Clara, I said no, Samuel Carter. Go to sleep." He went quiet. She finished her braid with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. She blew out the lamp. She lay down in her own bed beside her sleeping daughter, and she stared at the dark ceiling, and she told herself over and over in the steadiest voice she could muster in the privacy of her own skull, "No. No. No. No." But somewhere under the no softer than a whisper, smaller than the flame she had just blown out a yes, had already started to grow. And Clara Hayes, who had run from every yes of her life since she was 23 years old, lay in the dark and listened to it breathe. And she was more afraid of that small yes than she had ever been of any mob, any rope, any torch, any sheriff, any man on any road. Because she knew what yes cost, and she had a daughter, and she was going to say it anyway. She said it at breakfast. Samuel was at the table nursing a second cup of coffee, still a little gray around the eyes, but sitting straighter than he had in a week. Lily was on the floor with her rag doll, making the doll talk to a spoon. Clara set the skillet down harder than she meant to. "Yes." Samuel looked up. "Ma'am." "Yes. Red Creek. We'll go." He set the cup down so careful it didn't make a sound. Clara, don't make me say it twice, Samuel Carter, or I swear to God I'll take it back. I wasn't gonna make you say it twice. I was gonna say thank you. Don't thank me either. Then what am I allowed to do, woman? You're allowed to eat your eggs. Lily's head came up off the doll. Mama, we going somewhere? Yes, baby. Where? A place called Red Creek. Is it far? 4 days ride, Samuel says. 4 days. Lily tested the number in her mouth like a new candy. 4 days is a long time, Mama. I know it is. Are we coming back? Clara's hands went still on the skillet. She had not thought that far. She had been too busy telling herself not to say yes. I don't know, baby. Mama. Yes, Lily. Are we taking the blue blanket? It was such a child's question, it almost knocked the breath out of her. Yes, we're taking the blue blanket. Good. They packed for 2 days. There wasn't much to take. A tin box of her mother's pins. A Bible with her grandmother's name in the front that Clara couldn't read out of because the reading of it had been beaten out of her in Millbrook, along with a great many other things. Lily's rag doll. The blue blanket. A second dress for Clara folded small. Samuel wanted to help her carry things, and she wouldn't let him. You got a hole in your shoulder a rabbit could hop through, Samuel Carter. Sit down. Clara, I can carry a... Sit down. He sat. He watched her move around the cabin, and he said quiet, You've done this before. Done what? Packed up a life in a morning. Twice. Twice. First time I was 23. Second time I was 29. Third time I reckon I'll be 31 before the week is out. Clara, don't get soft on me. I can't bear it if you get soft on me. He didn't get soft. He kept his face the way a man keeps his face when a woman has asked him for the one thing she needs, and he gave it to her. They left on a Tuesday. Samuel had a horse. He whistled out of the brush 2 mornings before a tall bay he called Judd, that had followed his scent for 3 days and come when he called like a dog. Samuel put Clara and Lily up on Judd and walked beside one hand on the bridle because he wasn't strong enough yet to ride long and he wouldn't hear of her walking. I can walk, Samuel. Not with the girl, you can't. Lily can walk. Lily's 9. Lily's walked farther than you have this month. Clara Hayes, get on the damn horse. She got on the horse. They crossed prairie the first day and low hills the second, and on the third day they came down into country. She had never seen green along the creek bottoms, red in the high places, more cattle than she had ever seen in one stretch of land. Samuel pointed out brands to her as they passed. That's Boone's. He's a good man. His wife bakes pies you'd kill a stranger for. Samuel. Figure of speech woman. That's a bad figure of speech to use around me. Fair. Withdraw it. He pointed again. That one's Holloway. Old fella. Got no children. His wife passed back in 74, and he talks to his cattle like they're her. Don't laugh when you meet him. I ain't ever laughed at a grievin' man in my life. No. Samuel looked up at her on the horse. I don't reckon you have. Lily, half asleep against Clara's front, mumbled, Whose is that one? Mr. Samuel? Samuel's voice changed. It didn't go cold exactly. It went careful. That one's Calloway's. Clara's hand tightened on the reins. How much of this is his, Samuel? More than ought to be. How much? About 1/3 of what we've crossed today. And the other 2/3. Splits 12 ways among 12 families. Mine's the biggest of the 12. His is bigger than all 12 put together. Samuel, I know Clara. You're walking me into a county where one man owns half the dirt and wants the other half and has already tried to kill you for your peace. I'm walking you into my home. The rest is just geography. She didn't answer him. She watched the Calloway cattle grazing on the far side of the fence line, fat and slow, and she thought for the first time since she had said yes about turning Judd around. They came into Red Creek on the afternoon of the 4th day. Samuel had told her the town was small. It was smaller than he had said. A main street, a church, a general store, a livery, a saloon with its name painted, Crooked. A sheriff's office with the door standing open. A boarding house with a woman on the porch shelling peas. The woman on the porch saw Samuel, and her hands stopped on the peas, and she stood up so fast the bowl turned over. Samuel Carter. Afternoon, Miss Dottie. Samuel Carter, you are alive. I am, ma'am. We buried you, Samuel. Begs pardon, ma'am. We buried you, or meant to. Preacher said the service over an empty box on Sunday. Ezra Calloway paid for the box. Clara felt Samuel go rigid beside the horse. Did he now? Samuel. How long ago, Miss Dottie? 3 days back. He come into town and said he'd found your horse wanderin' with blood on the saddle, and he'd sent men out lookin', and they'd found nothin', and we was to pray for your soul. Samuel's jaw worked. Well, I reckon my soul don't need the prayin' after all. Who is this? Miss Dottie's eyes had landed on Clara. Clara felt the landing like a hand. This is Mrs. Hayes, Samuel said before Clara could open her mouth. And her daughter Lily. Mrs. Hayes found me shot to pieces in the grass and pulled a bullet out of me with her own 2 hands. I am alive on account of her, Miss Dottie, and I will thank anyone who passes her on the street to tip a hat. Miss Dottie's mouth opened, closed, opened. Mrs. Hayes. Ma'am? You saved him. I stitched him, that's all. That is not all, child. It's all, ma'am. Miss Dottie came down off the porch with her apron still full of pea pods, and she walked around the horse, and she looked up at Clara with eyes that had been wet, and now were wet again. Samuel Carter is the best man in this county. You have done a thing today, young lady, that this whole town ought to kiss your feet for. Please don't, ma'am. What's that? Please don't tell the whole town, ma'am. Miss Dottie blinked. Please. I'd rather be quiet on it if it's all the same to you. Well, Miss Dottie glanced at Samuel. Samuel gave a short nod. Well, all right, dear. All right. You come on in, and I'll fix you a proper supper. Lord above a child. A little child on the horse. Ma'am, Lily said from Clara's chest shy. Bless her heart. Bless her little heart. Come down, honey. Come on down. Clara handed Lily down. She dismounted after. Her legs were stiff from 4 days of riding, and when she touched the ground, she swayed a half-second before she found her feet. And she felt it. Eyes, not Miss Dottie's. Miss Dottie was fussing with Lily's hair, not Samuel's. Samuel was loosening the cinch on Judd. Eyes from the saloon porch. Eyes from the door of the general store. Eyes from the upstairs window of the boarding house across the way. A town's eyes the way a town looks at a stranger, and Clara Hayes knew every flavor of that look, and she was reading this one the way a sailor reads weather. Samuel. People are looking. People look when a dead man walks into town, Clara. They ain't looking at you. He glanced up. His face didn't change, but she felt the change in him. Inside, he said. Miss Dottie, supper. Yes, dear, yes. Come on, sweetheart, come on in. Supper was a stew Miss Dottie had been going to stretch for 3 days and now stretched for 5, and biscuits and a pie she'd been saving for Sunday. Samuel ate like a man who had not eaten for a month. Lily ate like a child who did not know when her next meal would come, because she didn't. Clara ate 2 spoonfuls and could not get a third past her throat. Miss Dottie watched her. Honey. Yes, ma'am. Who was at you? Ma'am? Who was at you, child, before this? Clara's spoon stopped halfway up. I've been running a boarding house 31 years, Mrs. Hayes. I know a woman who's been run at. Eat your pie. Ma'am, I'd rather not. I ain't asking you to tell me. I'm telling you I know. There's a difference. Eat your pie. Clara ate her pie. That night, Miss Dottie put Clara and Lily in a room at the top of the stairs with a window that looked out on the main street. Samuel took a room at the far end of the hall. Clara heard him walk past her door twice before he settled, and on the second pass he stopped, and his knuckles brushed the wood once, not a knock exactly, just a touch like a man checking a latch. She put her hand flat on the other side of the door. She didn't open it. He walked on. Lily was asleep in 2 minutes. Clara sat up in the chair by the window for 3 hours. On the second pass of the town's one watchman, she had counted first at 10, then at 12. A man stepped out of the saloon across the way and stood on the boards and lit a cigarette with a match he cupped carefully from the wind. He was a big man, hat low. He looked up at the boarding house window. Clara slid back out of the lamplight. The man took his time with the cigarette. He looked up at her window for a full minute. Then he tipped the ash off, walked back into the saloon, and did not come back out. She did not sleep. At breakfast the next morning, Miss Dotty put a plate in front of Samuel and said low, "Ezra Calloway was in the store an hour ago." Samuel's fork stopped. "Sayin' what?" "Askin' after the woman you come in with, askin' her name, askin' where she's from." "And what did Jim tell him?" "Jim told him nothin'. Jim is a good man. But Samuel, it won't stay nothin'. You know it won't." "I know." "What are you gonna do?" "I'm taking her out to the ranch today." Samuel. "Miss Dotty?" "Samuel, that ain't better. The ranch ain't better. That's worse, Samuel, that's alone with nobody else to—" "My men are at the ranch, 8 of 'em. Good men. Better than anything in this town." Samuel. "Miss Dotty, I love you, and I thank you for the bed, and I am taking her to the ranch today." Clara put her coffee down. Samuel. "Yes, Clara." "Why is Ezra Calloway asking after me by noon of my second day?" Samuel looked at her over the table. He did not soften it. She was grateful for that. "Because he said Ezra Calloway has eyes in every window in this town, and the minute one of 'em saw a woman come in with me who saved my life, he understood something." "Understood what?" "That I ain't alone anymore." "Samuel, I am not your—" "I didn't say what you are, Clara. I said what he thinks you are. Those are 2 different things, and only one of 'em is going to get you hurt." "Jesus, Samuel." "Language, Mama," Lily said, mouthful of biscuit. "Hush, baby." Miss Dotty laughed out loud in spite of herself. She pressed her knuckles to her mouth. "That child," she said. "That child is something." "She's mine," Clara said, and she didn't know why she said it so fierce, only that she did. "I know she is, honey. I know." They rode out at noon. Samuel ahead on a borrowed horse because Judd had earned a rest. Clara and Lily behind him on a little paint mare Miss Dotty had loaned them with a promise to send a boy for it in a week. 2 of Samuel's ranch hands met them at the first fork in the road. Men Clara had never seen, men who looked at Samuel like he was a ghost, come home, and looked at her like she was the reason for it. "Mr. Carter." "Tom." "We thought—" "I know what you thought. Mrs. Hayes here thought otherwise and did something about it." The 2 men took their hats off. Both of them. At the same time. "Ma'am?" "Please," Clara said small. "Please don't." "Ma'am, you brung him home." "Please." Samuel cut in. "Tom, Bill, this is Mrs. Hayes and her daughter, Miss Lily. They're staying. Any man who's got a problem with that, he can come find me, and if he can't find me, he can ride on. Clear?" "Yes, sir." "Yes, sir." "Clear as water, Mr. Carter." They rode the last 2 miles to the ranch house with the 2 men behind them, and Clara understood, without anyone saying it, that she was being escorted. Not followed. Escorted. Like a woman of some account. Like a woman worth a rifle at her back, instead of a rifle at her front, for the first time in 6 years. The ranch house was bigger than Samuel had said, too. Not grand, but solid. 2 stories. A wraparound porch. A barn behind it the size of the Millbrook Church. A cook named Elena, who came out wiping her hands on an apron and saw Samuel and put both hands flat to her mouth and said, "Madre de Dios," and then sat down on the porch step and cried. Samuel crouched in front of her. Elena, mírame. I'm here." They said, "I know what they said." "Señor." "I know, Elena. I'm here. I'm here because of this woman. You're gonna treat her like she's mine. You hear me?" Elena's eyes went up to Clara. Swollen. Bright. "Si, señor." "Yes. Yes, ma'am. Come down. Come down, you and the little one. Come in, come in, come in." Clara let herself be helped down. Let Lily be swept up. Let herself be led into a house that smelled of beeswax and bread and cedar, a house where a woman had died 2 years ago of fever, and the furniture still sat. The way that woman had arranged it, a house that Clara understood within 4 steps of the threshold, that Samuel Carter had not changed one single thing in since. She stopped in the front room. "Samuel." "Clara." "This was your wife's house?" "Yes." "And you brought me into it?" "Yes." "Samuel, I can't." "Clara, stop. It's a house. A house is a set of walls and a roof. It ain't a woman. It ain't Rebecca. Rebecca is buried under the oak out back, and I go to her every Sunday and I tell her about the week. That's where she lives. Not in this parlor, not in that kitchen. You are not stepping on her. I would not bring you here if you were." "Samuel, eat something. Sit down. Let Elena fuss over the girl. Let yourself breathe for 1 hour in your life, Clara Hayes. Can you do that?" She breathed. She sat down. Lily was laughing in the kitchen at something Elena had said, a real child's laugh, the kind Clara had not heard out of her daughter in longer than she could measure. She closed her eyes, and she listened to it, and she thought, This is why I said yes." And she thought under that small and cold, "This is also why it's going to hurt when it's taken." Because somewhere across the county, at that exact hour, Ezra Calloway was walking the length of his own front porch with a cup of coffee in his hand and word in his ear that Samuel Carter had come back from the dead with a woman on his horse. And Ezra Calloway was not a man to let a dead man rise twice. He was instead a man to sit down at his own dining table and call for pen and paper, and begin very carefully the work of finding out who Clara Hayes was, and where she had come from, and what a town somewhere had once called her, and what a town somewhere might be persuaded to call her again. He would have the name by Thursday. He would have the story by Sunday. And Clara Hayes, sitting in a dead woman's parlor with her daughter's laughter in her ears, did not yet know that the quietest supper of her adult life was the last quiet supper she was going to eat for a very long time. The letter went out on Wednesday. Ezra Calloway wrote it himself at his own desk. A man of maybe 55 with silver at his temples and a handwriting that had been taught to him by a governess his mother had imported from Boston. He addressed it to a sheriff in Millbrook County. He sealed it with wax. He gave it to a boy and a fast horse, and he paid the boy $4, which was 2 weeks' wages for a rider, and he told the boy to wait for the answer and bring it back at the same speed. The boy was gone inside an hour. Samuel did not know about the letter. Clara did not know about the letter. Lily, being 9, knew only that Elena had made her tortillas for the first time in her life, and that the tall man who owned the house had built her a little 3-legged stool to stand on, so she could reach the counter, and that a yellow dog named Duke had come up onto the porch the second evening and laid his chin on her bare foot and gone to sleep, and that these 3 things together felt more like heaven than anything Millbrook had ever offered. A week went by. Samuel healed. He rode again carefully the first day, properly by the 3rd. The hands watched him ride out and ride back, and watched Clara watch him from the porch, and nobody said a word. Clara cooked with Elena. Clara learned the names of the hands. Clara began, God help her, to sleep a full 6 hours at a stretch for the first time since her daughter had been born. On the 8th day, Samuel sat her down on the porch at dusk and said, "Clara." "Samuel, there's a church supper in town on Sunday." "All right. I'd like you and Lily to come with me." She was quiet a long moment. "Samuel." "I know." "You know what you're asking." "I know. I'm asking it anyway." "Why?" "Because if I don't walk you into that hall on my arm, the whole county is going to tell the story for me, and I'd rather tell it myself." "Samuel, they've been talking already. You know they have." "I know. Miss Dottie told me. Elena told me. Tom told me yesterday when he thought I couldn't hear. They're saying things. I know what they're saying. Then why put me in front of them?" "Because the longer I hide you, Clara, the more it'll sound true." She looked out across the yard. Lily was in the paddock with Duke trailing a length of rope that the dog kept pouncing on. The sun was going down behind the barn. Clara could feel her own heartbeat in her throat the way she could always feel it in a place she was about to be tested. "All right. You'll come." "I'll come. But Samuel, if anything goes sideways in that hall." It won't. If anything goes sideways. Clara, it won't. Samuel Carter. You swore to me that every town was different. I am reminding you now, in case you forgot, that a town is a town is a town. If anything goes sideways, you get Lily out. You hear me? You get Lily out, and you don't look back for me. Clara. Swear it. I ain't swearing that. Swear it. He looked at her a long time. The light was going out of the sky behind him, and his face was half shadow. I will get Lily out, he said. I will always get Lily out. But I am not leaving you, Clara Hayes. Not in a church hall, not in a jail, not in a grave, not anywhere. So don't ask me to swear that part, because I won't. And a man oughtn't lie to a woman he's asking to supper. Her throat closed. Samuel. Clara. You shouldn't say things like that to me. I know I shouldn't. It ain't fair. I know. I got nothing to give you back. I didn't ask for anything back. Samuel. Go put Lily to bed, Clara. Sunday's coming whether we fret about it or not. The boy on the fast horse came back on Saturday morning. Ezra Calloway read the letter from Millbrook at his own breakfast table, and he smiled the smile of a man who had just been handed a loaded pistol he didn't even have to cock. He folded the letter. He put it in the inside pocket of his coat. He called his foreman in and gave instructions in a voice so low the kitchen girl only caught 3 words of it, and the 3 words she caught were church Sunday and slowly. Sunday came. Clara had put on the only dress she owned that wasn't torn. Miss Dottie had sent a ribbon over by a boy for Lily's hair, and Lily had let her mother tie it on and had looked at herself in Elena's little hand mirror and said grave, Mama, I look like a regular girl. And Clara had had to go outside to the porch for a minute so her daughter would not see her cry. They rode in. Samuel in front. Clara and Lily on the paint. Tom and Bill trailing a respectful 20 yards behind because Samuel had told them to, and they had not argued. The church was at the far end of the main street, and the supper was in the hall behind it, a long, low building with every window open, and lamps already burning inside against the coming dark. There were people on the steps of the hall, not a few, many, more than Samuel had expected. He slowed his horse. Clara. I see him, Samuel. That ain't the usual turnout. No, it ain't. You want to turn around. She looked at her daughter's face bright with anticipation, ribbon catching the last of the sun. She thought about what turning around would teach a girl who had already been taught too much. No, we ride in. Clara. Samuel, we ride in, or we never ride into this town again. Make up your mind which. He made up his mind. He rode in. The people on the steps parted for him. Not warmly. Not the way people had parted for him a week ago when he'd first come back from the dead. They parted the way a crowd parts when it has been told very quietly, very carefully, by a very rich man that the woman on the horse behind the rancher is not what she seems. Miss Dottie was on the bottom step. Her face was the color of paper. Samuel. Miss Dottie. Samuel, there's talk inside. What talk? Samuel, honey, get her back on that horse. Miss Dottie, what talk? Ezra Calloway is in there. He's been in there an hour. He's been saying Samuel. He's got a letter. He's been reading a letter. Clara from the saddle said in a voice so flat it didn't sound like her own. Samuel, get Lily down. Clara. Get her down, Samuel. Hand her to Miss Dottie, right now. Samuel reached up. Lily came down into his arms, confused, the ribbon bouncing. He passed her to Miss Dottie, and Miss Dottie took her and held her the way a grandmother holds a child she means to keep. Miss Dottie, take her to the boarding house. Lock the door. Don't open it for anybody but me or Samuel. Do you hear me? Child. Do you hear me? I hear you, honey. I hear you. Mama. Lily's voice small breaking. Mama, where you going? I'll come get you, baby. Mama. I will come get you. You go with Miss Dottie. You do what she says. You eat your supper, and you don't look out any window. Promise me. Mama, please. Promise me, Lily Hayes. I promise. Good girl, go on. Miss Dottie carried her off. Lily did not cry until they were halfway down the street, and Clara could not hear it anymore, and was grateful for that one mercy. Clara swung down off the horse. Her legs didn't shake. That surprised her. She had expected them to shake. Samuel said low, "Clara, we can turn around." "No, we can't. Not now. If we turn around now, she hears the story without us in the room to answer it, and by Tuesday it's fact. We go in Samuel." "Clara, give me your arm." He gave her his arm. She took it like a woman going to a dance. They walked up the steps, and the crowd parted again, and they walked through the door of the hall, and every head in the room turned. There were maybe 60 people inside. The long tables had been set for the supper, but the supper had not started, and the reason it had not started was that Ezra Calloway was standing at the head of the middle table with a piece of paper in his hand, and the room's attention folded around him like cupped hands. He stopped speaking when Samuel came in. He smiled. "Samuel Carter." "Ezra, I was just now telling your neighbors about the recent miracle of your resurrection. Mighty kind of you to keep my name warm. The Lord provides, and this lovely young lady must be your nurse. This is Mrs. Hayes." "Mrs. Hayes?" "Of course. Mrs. Clara Hayes, I believe." Clara's heart hit once hard against her ribs. She had told him no name. Miss Dottie had told him no name. Samuel had told him no name in this room. "That's my name." "A fine name, ma'am. A fine old name. One I've been hearing a great deal about this afternoon." Samuel stepped half the step in front of her. "Ezra." Now, Samuel. I am not a man given to rudeness. I am merely observing that a woman of Mrs. Hayes's particular history is a rare and interesting visitor to a quiet county like ours, and the good people of Red Creek have a right to know who is walking among 'em. You got something to say, say it. Otherwise, sit down." "Samuel, it pains me." "Sit down, Ezra." "It pains me, Samuel. Truly. Because I have here in my hand a letter from the sheriff of Millbrook County. A letter I did not seek. A letter which came to me unbidden by the hand of a traveler on account of a certain description I had occasion to mention in passing at the general store earlier this week." Clara's voice came out of her before she knew she was going to speak. "Read it." The room went still. "Ma'am, I said read it, Mr. Calloway. You brought it. You wrote for it. You've been waiting all week for the chance. Don't pretend it fell out the sky into your pocket. Read it." Ezra Calloway smiled wider. It was the smile of a man who had been offered exactly the opening he had written the letter to get. "Very well, ma'am, if you insist." He lifted the paper. He read in the slow, rolling voice of a man who had read in pulpits as a boy. "To whom it may concern. In response to your inquiry of the 15th instant, I am sorry to confirm that the woman described in your letter matches in every particular one Clara Hayes, formerly of this county, a person of evil reputation and proven malice, who in the spring of 1872 did through means unknown to medicine cause the death of an infant placed in her care, namely one Thomas Marsh, 8 months of age, and who further in the investigations that followed was found to have practiced the arts of witchcraft, herbcraft, and the summoning of misfortune upon her neighbors, and who fled this county one step ahead of the rope she had honestly earned. If she is in your jurisdiction, sir, I urge you in the strongest terms to arrest her on sight and to secure her person until such time as she may be returned here for the trial she escaped. Signed, Sheriff J. Marsh, Millbrook County. The silence in the hall was the silence of 60 people forgetting to breathe at once. Samuel said quiet and level, "That sheriff is the brother of the baby who died." Nobody heard him. Clara said louder, "That sheriff is the brother of the baby who died, and he was the one who swore out the charge, and he was the one who called the town to the square. Ask him. Ask him whose brother he is. Go on, ask him." Ezra Calloway smiled gently. "Now, Mrs. Hayes, a grieving brother is not disqualified from the truth. A grieving brother who's also the sheriff who arrests the woman he's accusing is disqualified, Mr. Calloway, in every court that calls itself a court." "Well spoken, ma'am. You have a lawyerly way about you." "My father was a lawyer. He defended me at that trial. My father is dead now, Mr. Calloway. Conveniently for that letter. Convenient indeed. A woman at the second table stood up. A thin woman, middle-aged, with a face that had already decided. Samuel Carter. You brought a witch into this town. Ruth, sit down. You brought a witch into my town, Samuel, with my children in it. Ruth, sit down. I won't sit down. I won't. Ezra, what do we do? What do we do, Ezra? Ezra Calloway raised both hands, placating, humble. Friends, let us not be hasty. The letter is a letter. Mrs. Hayes deserves the chance to answer it. Mrs. Hayes, did a child die in your arms? Yes. A hiss went through the room. Did you have charge of that child? Yes. The mother was sick. I was sitting the baby. And the baby died. The baby died of a fever I could not break with any medicine I or any doctor in that county had. He died at 3 in the morning on a Wednesday in April. Mr. Calloway and I have thought about him every Wednesday of my life since. And did the people of Millbrook believe your account? The people of Millbrook did not hold a trial, Mr. Calloway. They held a square. And in that square, they cut my hair off with a knife, and they broke 2 of my fingers, and they would have hung me by sundown if my father had not taken me out of that county in a wagon at midnight. That is the answer to your question. You want to call that justice, you call it. I call it what it was. The room was split. Clara could feel it. Half the faces had gone cold. The other half had gone uncertain, and uncertain was something uncertain, was a door she could still walk through. And Ezra Calloway slammed the door. Mrs. Hayes, he said, very soft, very kind. Was there not also the matter of the livestock? Her stomach turned over. Mr. Calloway, the cattle that died, the horses that went mad, the well that fouled. Was this all coincidence, Mrs. Hayes, or was it perhaps the case that a young woman of unusual skill with herbs had let her skills lead her somewhere her church could no longer follow? Those things happened to half the farms in the county that year. It was a bad year. They happened most to the farms near yours. Because I lived near half the county. Mrs. Hayes. Samuel's voice came out like a gunshot. Enough! Every head turned. Ezra, you have stood in this hall in front of my neighbors, and you have read a letter from a man who signs himself sheriff and brother in the same breath, and you expect honest men to call that testimony. It is not testimony. It is a grievance. And it was written because you paid a boy to ride for it. Don't smile at me. Don't you dare smile at me. I know you paid him. The boy's mother works for Elena, and Elena told me this morning. $4. $4 to a boy to bring you the weapon you're swinging at this woman's head. Tell the room, Ezra. Tell the room you paid $4 for that letter. Ezra Calloway did not stop smiling. A man is entitled to inquire. A man is entitled. A man is entitled. Say what you paid, Ezra. I paid what I paid, for the safety of this town. For the safety of this town, my eye. For my ranch. For my water. You couldn't kill me with bullets, so you're killing me with her. Tell it plain. Say it plain in front of these people who've known you 30 years, and tell them what you are. Samuel, you are overwrought. I am overwrought. Your recent injuries. My recent injuries were your hired men's bullets. Ezra Calloway and I will say it in front of every soul in this hall, and I will say it in front of God on the day He asks me, and I will say it one more time, if anybody here asks me to prove it. The doors at the back of the hall banged open. 3 men stood in the doorway. They were not from Red Creek. Clara had never seen them. Samuel had he went still the way a man goes still when the dog he's been tracking walks out of the brush in front of him. They were the men from the road, the men who had shot him, the men Ezra Calloway had paid. Sheriff, the biggest one said, out front. A 4th man walked in behind them. The sheriff of Red Creek. A thin, tired man Clara had glimpsed from across the street her first day. He did not meet Samuel's eyes. He did not meet Clara's. He looked at Ezra Calloway, and only at Ezra Calloway, and Clara understood in that one single look exactly how this town had been arranged, and by whom, and for how long. Mrs. Hayes, the sheriff said. Sheriff? I got a warrant. For what? For the murder of Thomas Marsh Infant in Millbrook County on or about April the 3rd, 1872. I'm taking you into custody pending transport." Samuel stepped between them. "You are not taking her anywhere." Samuel, step aside. "You are not taking her anywhere. Hollis and I will put you on the floor of this hall in front of every soul here if you so much as put a hand on her." Samuel. "Step back, Hollis." The three men from the road moved forward. The big one had a pistol already loose in its holster. Samuel did not have a pistol. Samuel had worn no pistol into a church supper because a man does not wear a pistol into a church supper. Clara saw that in 1/2 second, and she saw in the next exactly what was about to happen to the man who had let her save his life. "Stop!" Her voice cut the hall open. "Stop, Sheriff, I'll go." "Clara." "Samuel, I'll go. I will go with the sheriff peaceably on my own 2 feet. Nobody gets hit. Nobody draws a gun. Nobody is shot in front of these people. Do you hear me? I am going." "Clara, no." She turned to him. She put one hand flat on his chest over the scar she had stitched herself, and she looked into his pale blue eyes, and she said quiet enough that it was only for him, "Get Lily." "Clara." "Samuel, get my daughter. You swore it. You get her and you ride, and you don't stop till she's somewhere nobody has ever heard my name. You swore." "Clara, I am not leaving you." "You are not leaving me. You are saving her. They are not the same thing and you know it. Go." His eyes broke. She watched them break. She had not known a man's eyes could do that in front of her, and she hoped she would never see it again for as long as she lived. The sheriff took her by the elbow. Not rough. Almost gentle. She let him. She walked out of the hall on the sheriff's arm, with her back straight, and her head up, and 60 people watching, and the 3 men from the road fell in behind her, and Ezra Calloway stood at the head of his table and watched her go with the quiet satisfaction of a man who had just closed a ledger. Behind her in the hall, she heard Samuel Carter say one word to no one in particular, and the word was no, and it came out of him, the way a wound comes out of a body. And then Tom and Bill had him by both arms, because they knew what he would do if they let him go, and they were saving him for her, even if he did not want to be saved. The sheriff's office was 4 buildings down. The cell was cold, the door closed, and somewhere in the dark outside at the edge of town, at the door of the boarding house, a little girl was asking Miss Dottie over and over where her mother was, and Miss Dottie was holding her tight and telling her the only lie a good woman ever tells a child, which is that everything was going to be all right. Tom had Samuel's right arm. Bill had his left. They were strong men who worked cattle for a living, and even so, they were having trouble holding him. "Mr. Carter." "Let me go, Tom." "Mr. Carter, you walk out that door right now, and you are a dead man, and then who takes care of the girl?" Samuel stopped. It was the only word that could have stopped him, and Tom, who was 46 years old, and had 3 daughters of his own, knew it. "The girl," Samuel said. "The girl, Mr. Carter. The girl first. Everything else after." Samuel's whole body shook once, a long, hard shudder like a horse shaking off water. Then he straightened. Then he said flat, "Let go of me." "Mr. Carter." "I said let go. I ain't going after her tonight. Not like this. Not in a church hall. Let go." They let go slow. The hall was still full of people, but no one was eating. Ezra Calloway was already gone. Slipped out the side door between one breath and the next. The 3 men from the road were gone with him. Miss Dottie was gone. Most of the room was gone, truth be told, or gathering up coats to leave the way a town leaves a place where something has happened that they will all be arguing about for the rest of their lives. The woman Ruth, who had stood up first, was still standing. Her face had changed. She said smaller, "Samuel." "Don't, Ruth." "Samuel, I didn't mean—" "You didn't mean. You meant, Ruth. You stood up in front of God and your neighbors, and you called a woman a witch on the word of a paid letter. Don't say you didn't mean. Go home to your children." "Samuel." "Go home." She went. Samuel turned to Bill. "Bill, ride to the ranch. Get every man, every rifle. Bring 'em to the edge of town. Don't come in. Wait at the draw by the cottonwoods. You know the place. Yes, sir. Tom, with me. Yes, sir. Where? Miss Dottie's. I want Lily moved tonight. Not tomorrow. Tonight. I want her out of this town before the sun comes up. Mr. Carter, what about Mrs. Hayes? Samuel's jaw set. We get the child safe first. Then we get her mother out. In that order. Because that's the order she told me, and I gave her my word. They rode. Fast. Miss Dottie met them at the door with a lantern and a face that had already gone through fear and come out the other side of it into something harder. Lily was behind her in the front room, sitting on a braided rug rag doll in her lap, eyes dry because a 9-year-old who has already survived one town knows better than to cry in a second one. Mr. Samuel. Miss Lily. Where's Mama? Miss Lily, your mama told me to come get you. Where is she? She is at the sheriff's. Why? Because a bad man lied about her. The same kind of bad man as in Millbrook. And your mama told me to get you somewhere he can't reach you. And I am here to do that, and you're gonna have to be a brave girl for about 6 more hours. Can you do that? Do. Lily stood up. She came over. She looked up at him with her mother's eyes and her mother's straight back, and she said, Is Mama gonna die? No, ma'am. Promise. On my life, Miss Lily. All right. Just like that. All right. The way a child of that mother would answer. Miss Dottie pressed a bundle into Samuel's hands. Her things, such as they are. The ribbon, the blue blanket, some biscuits for the ride. Samuel. Yes, ma'am. The sheriff ain't moving her to Millbrook. Ma'am, I heard Hollis on the steps as I come past with the child. He was talking to one of those 3 men. They ain't moving her to Millbrook, Samuel. They're moving her tonight, just out of town. The old Percy barn. That's what the man said. Take her to the Percy barn and don't leave anything when you're done. Samuel's whole body went still. Miss Dottie. I know, honey. They're gonna kill her. They're gonna kill her and say she escaped and died in the brush. Yes. What time? I heard him say midnight. He looked at the clock on her mantel. It was already past 9. Tom? Yes, sir. Ride to Bill. Tell him the draw by the cottonwoods is the wrong place. Tell him to take every man to the north side of the Percy barn and hold there. No shooting, no noise. Wait for me. Yes, sir. And Tom? Yes, sir. Ride like a man who has known me 20 years. I will, Mr. Carter. Tom went. The door banged behind him. Samuel knelt down to Lily's level. Miss Lily, Miss Dottie is going to take you out the back way through the alley to a wagon. There's a good woman named Elena at my ranch and she is going to hide you. You stay with Elena till I come for you. No matter what you hear tonight, no matter what anybody says at the door, you stay with Elena. Hear me? Yes, sir. If anything happens to me or your mama, no. Not if. Nothing is happening to your mama. Strike that. You stay with Elena till I come. That's the whole instruction. You remember it? I remember. Good girl. She flung her arms around his neck so hard it almost put him on the floor. He held her 1 second, 2. Then he pried her off gentle, and he handed her to Miss Dottie. And Miss Dottie, God bless her, did not waste a minute. The cell in Red Creek was 8 feet by 10. Clara had measured it with her feet. She had done this before in a different cell, in a different town 6 years ago, and she was a little surprised at how quickly her body remembered the measuring. 8 by 10. A cot. A bucket. A window too high to reach crossed with 2 flat iron bars. The sheriff was not in the front office. The deputy was a young man, maybe 22, and he had not looked at her once since she had been brought in. He sat with his back to her cell, and he cleaned a rifle that did not need cleaning. Son? He didn't answer. Deputy? Silence. Deputy, how old are you? Ma'am, I ain't supposed to talk to you. I'm asking how old you are. That ain't a crime against the sheriff's office last I checked. 22, ma'am. 22. You got a mother, deputy. Everybody's got a mother, ma'am. She livin'. Yes, ma'am. Where? Outside of Waco. She a good woman? Yes, ma'am. Best there is. Then you listen to me, son. I am a mother. I got a 9-year-old girl who is across town right now not knowing if her only parent is coming home. If you are a man whose mother raised him right, you will tell me the truth about one thing. Ma'am? They ain't moving me to Millbrook, are they? The deputy stopped cleaning. Are they, son? Ma'am, please. Are they? He didn't answer. He did not need to answer. His shoulders answered. Clara sat down on the cot. Her hands did not shake. That was the strange thing. She had thought her hands would shake, and they did not. She thought about her daughter's face, and she thought about Samuel Carter's pale blue eyes, the way they had broken in the church hall, and she thought, all right then. If this is it, I make it count. Son. Ma'am. You got paper. What? Paper, son, and a pencil. I want to write my daughter a letter. You let me do that. You don't have to let me mail it. You just have to let me write it, and when it's done, you give it to Miss Dottie at the boarding house. Can you do that? He was already reaching for the drawer. Yes, ma'am. He slid a piece of paper and a stubby pencil through the bars. She took them. She sat on the cot. She wrote for 10 minutes with a hand that was steadier than it had any right to be, and when she was done, she folded the paper into 3, and on the outside, she wrote in careful letters, for Lily, from her mother, who loved her from the first minute and every minute after. She passed it back through the bars. Miss Dottie, not the sheriff, not Calloway, Miss Dottie. Yes, ma'am. Say it. Miss Dottie, not the sheriff, not Calloway. Son, what's your name? Eli, ma'am. Eli, your mother outside of Waco raised a good boy. He swallowed hard. He did not look at her. 3 hours later, they came for her. It was not the sheriff who came. It was the 3 men from the road, and one other, a thin one with a scar from his eye to his jaw. Eli was gone. The front office was empty. They had sent him on an errand, or he had sent himself, and Clara could not tell which and did not have time to wonder. On your feet, missus. Where? Transport. To Millbrook. Sure, Millbrook. You're a liar, mister. The big one smiled without any part of his face above the mouth. Get up. She got up. They did not put her in irons. That was how she knew for sure. A prisoner going to Millbrook would have been in irons. A woman being walked out of town to be killed did not need them, because where they were taking her, she would not be walking back. They put her on the back of a wagon. 2 of them rode ahead. The big one drove. The thin one with the scar sat beside her with a pistol in his lap. Not pointed at her, but there. She looked up at the stars. She thought about Lily. She did not cry. She thought about Samuel. She still did not cry. She thought, if I cry, they win a little. I will not let them win 1 inch more than they have to win tonight. The wagon rolled out of town. The wagon rolled on for 20 minutes. The wagon stopped at a barn that had not seen a horse in 10 years, a sagging, sway-backed, half-roofed thing at the end of a lane where the brush had grown up over the wheel ruts. They walked her inside. They had a rope already slung over a beam. Mister, Clara said, don't talk. Mister, I am going to die in the next 10 minutes, whether you let me talk or not, so I am going to talk. The big one paused. You got a wife, mister? Shut up. You got a mother still living? Shut up, missus. I am going to ask God to be merciful to you tonight, mister. I am going to ask him to be merciful, because the man who paid you $4 is not going to be merciful to you when the time comes and somebody has to be. The thin one laughed. The big one did not. Get her up on the stool. They got her up on the stool. They put the rope around her neck. The big one tightened the knot behind her ear. The thin one was already pulling his pistol because somebody apparently was supposed to put a bullet in her before the drop to be sure. Clara felt the rope. She felt the knot. She closed her eyes. She thought her daughter's name one time clear and whole like a prayer. And the door of the barn came apart, Not the whole door, just the top half of it splintering inward under a man's shoulder, and the man was Samuel Carter, and behind him were 9 other men with rifles, and everything after that happened in less time than it took to say it. The thin one's pistol went off. A splinter of wood opened beside Clara's ear. The big one dove for his own gun, and Tom took him off his feet with one shot. The other 2 turned and ran for the back of the barn, and Bill and another hand cut them off before they had taken 5 steps. Samuel was already across the floor. Samuel was already at the stool. Samuel was already cutting her down with a knife, one hand bracing her, the other sawing the rope clean through. She fell into him. Clara. Samuel. Clara. 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 Samuel. Don't let them. They're down. They're all down. You're all right. Clara. You're all right. Lily. Lily is with Elena. Lily is safe. Lily is safe. She broke then. It came out of her in one long noise that was not quite a word and not quite a sob, and sounded like a thing that had been locked in a chest for 6 years finally getting out. He held her. He did not shush her. He did not tell her not to cry. He let her cry, and he held her, and he rocked her the way a man rocks a child. Outside the barn hooves. Tom's head came up. Mr. Carter. I hear him. That's more than 1 horse. I know. That's 4, maybe 5. I know Tom. He set Clara down careful on the stool. He tore the rope the rest of the way off her neck. He looked into her face. Clara, stay here. Don't come out. Samuel. Stay here. Samuel, don't kill him. Clara. Samuel Carter. You listen to me. You listen. You walk out that door, and you shoot that man, and you are no different from him. You hear me. You shoot him cold, and my daughter grows up with a man who shot a man for her, and you never look at her the same, and she never looks at you the same. You hear me. Don't. Clara, he sent men to hang you. I know what he did, and I am telling you, take him alive, make him answer. In front of people, in a real courtroom with a real judge. That is the only thing that ends this. That is the only thing that buries it. Do you hear me, Samuel Carter? He stared at her. I hear you. Swear it. I swear it. Good. Go. He went. Ezra Calloway had come himself. That was the mistake. He had come with the sheriff and 2 more hired men because he had wanted to see it done, because a man like Ezra Calloway did not trust the killing of a woman who had cost him a week's work to men who had already failed him twice. He came riding up the lane at 10 past midnight, expecting to see Clara Hayes's body in the dust, and one of his men riding out to meet him with the news that the deed was done. He did not see that. What he saw when he reined up in front of the barn was Samuel Carter standing in the open doorway with a rifle across his chest and 9 armed ranch hands fanned out behind him in a half circle that was not a half circle a man rode out of. Ezra? Samuel. Drop the gun. Samuel, I don't know what you think you've... Drop the gun, Ezra. Ezra Calloway did something then that Clara, listening from inside the barn with one hand pressed flat against the splintered wall, would remember for the rest of her life. He laughed. Samuel, you are not going to shoot me. You are not that kind of man. You are right about that, Ezra. Then stand aside. I ain't standing aside. I am taking you into town. Alive. You are going to sit in the sheriff's cell where she sat, and in the morning you are going to explain to the county judge from Austin, who is already on his way. Miss Dottie sent a rider at sundown. Why a letter from Millbrook was in your pocket before Mrs. Hayes had ever set foot in Red Creek. Drop the gun. Samuel. Drop it, Ezra. Last time. Ezra Calloway made the second mistake of the night. He went for his pistol. He was not a fast man. He was 55, and he had not drawn a pistol in anger in 20 years. And he was drawing against 10 rifles held by men who worked cattle for a living. Samuel did not shoot him. Tom shot him. Low, through the thigh. A wound that would not kill him and would not let him run and would heal in 6 weeks and would hold him in a cell until the judge came. Ezra Calloway went off his horse screaming. The Sheriff Hollis dropped his own pistol and raised his hand so fast he almost fell off his saddle himself. The 2 remaining hired men took one look at the 9 rifles and surrendered right there in the lane without a shot fired from their side. It was over. Samuel walked out to Ezra Calloway where he lay in the dust. He stood over him a long moment. Ezra was cursing, clutching his leg, blood between his fingers. Samuel did not raise his rifle. Ezra. You son of a... Ezra, you hear me? You son of a... Ezra, listen. Clara Hayes saved your life tonight. You understand me. She stood in a barn with a rope on her neck, and she told me to take you alive. You owe her your breath. Every breath you take from this night till the day they hang you, Ezra, you take because a woman you tried to murder stopped me from putting a bullet through your forehead. Remember that. In your cell. Every morning. Remember who gave you that morning. Ezra Calloway did not answer. Ezra Calloway was weeping into the dirt, partly from the pain, and partly from the thing no man like him ever expects to feel, which is the humiliation of being alive on another person's mercy. Samuel turned. He walked back to the barn. He walked into it. Clara was on her feet against the wall, her neck red where the rope had been, her hands steady, her eyes wet but clear. Samuel. Clara. You didn't. I didn't. Good. You were right. I know I was right. Clara. Samuel, take me to my daughter. Yes, ma'am. Right now. Yes, ma'am. He lifted her. She did not weigh just then what a grown woman ought to weigh. He carried her out of that barn in his arms, and he put her up on Judd in front of him, like she was the girl he had walked in with a week ago. And Tom and Bill, and the 7 others, put Ezra Calloway in the back of his own wagon, with a rag tied around his leg, and the Sheriff Hollis up front beside the driver in irons of his own, and the whole party rode for Red Creek under a sky going gray at its eastern edge. They reached Miss Dottie's porch at first light. The door opened before they were off the horses. Lily came out of that door at a dead run in her nightgown, with her ribbon still in her hair, and she did not stop running until she was in her mother's arms. And Clara Hayes, who had not cried in the wagon, not in the cell, not under the rope, not even when Samuel had cut her down, sat in the dust of a Red Creek morning with her daughter wrapped around her neck, and sobbed like a woman whose heart had remembered how. Miss Dottie let them have the porch for as long as they needed. She stood in the doorway with her arms folded, and she shooed off every curious neighbor who tried to come up the steps with a question or an opinion. And she did it with a face that had decided sometime during the long night that Clara Hayes was hers now, and that anyone who wanted to pass a judgment on her was going to pass it through Dottie Raines first. Clara held her daughter on the boards of that porch for the better part of an hour. Mama. Yes, baby. Mama, you're shaken. I know, baby. I know. Don't shake. I'm trying, Lily. Is it over? Yes, baby. All the way over? Clara pulled her back just far enough to see her face. The ribbon was crooked. The nightgown was smudged at one knee where Lily had gone down on it running. Her eyes were enormous. It's all the way over, Lily. You promise? I promise. Mr. Samuel promised too. Did he? He said on his life. Well, Clara looked up past her daughter's shoulder to where Samuel was leaning against the porch post with his hat in his hand, and an expression she could not entirely read. Then I reckon that makes it double. Samuel cleared his throat. Triple if you count Miss Dottie. I ain't heard Miss Dottie swear nothin' yet, Samuel Carter. I swear, Miss Dottie said from the doorway without moving. On my dead husband and my one good knee. Is that enough for you, honey? Lily considered it grave. That's enough. The judge from Austin arrived on a Thursday. His name was Hadley, and he was 63 years old, and he was a friend of no man in Red Creek, which was the point. Miss Dottie's rider had reached him at the circuit court in Austin on Monday morning, and he had closed his docket and ridden 5 days to hear the matter personally, because Hadley was the kind of judge who, when a letter reached him with the words paid letter and rope and witch in it, stopped whatever he was doing and came. He heard Ezra Calloway's case first. He heard it on a Friday in the same church hall where the supper had been. The hall was fuller than it had been on Sunday. People had come from farms Clara had never seen, from homesteads 40 miles out from 2 counties over. They had come because the story had gotten out the way stories always got out, carried by teamsters and drummers and the wives of men who could not keep a secret past the second cup of coffee. Samuel sat in the front row with Clara on one side of him and Lily on the other. Miss Dottie sat on Clara's other side. Elena sat behind them, and Tom and Bill and the rest of the hands filled the 2 rows behind Elena, and the message of the seating was not lost on anyone in the hall. Ezra Calloway was brought in on crutches, his leg bandaged to the hip. He had aged 10 years in a week. His silver hair looked thinner. His fine coat had not been pressed. Judge Hadley looked at him over a pair of spectacles that had been mended with wire at one hinge. "Mr. Calloway." "Your Honor." "I have read the letter you commissioned from Sheriff Marsh of Millbrook County." "Your Honor, that letter was—" "I did not ask you yet. I will tell you when I have asked you. I have read the letter. I have also received by separate writer a deposition from a retired judge in Millbrook County, a man named Arlen Voss, who presided over the matter of Mrs. Hayes at the time in question, and who is still by the grace of God alive, though he has been in the habit of not speaking of that trial because it shamed him." The hall was dead silent. Judge Voss writes, "I will read it to the court that no trial was ever held, that the charge was dismissed on his own order for lack of any evidence whatsoever beyond the word of Sheriff Marsh, who was the brother of the deceased infant. That the sheriff then incited a mob of 16 men and 4 women to take matters into their own hands. That Mrs. Hayes, then Miss Clara Voss, Hayes was assaulted in the public square in violation of every law this state has on its books. That her father Caleb Hayes, a respected attorney of that county, evacuated her under threat to his own life. That the sheriff has spent the intervening 6 years writing the same slander to any county he suspected her of hiding in." "Mr. Calloway, did you know these facts when you commissioned the letter?" "Your Honor, I did not." "Mr. Calloway, I have a deposition from a boy named Henry Lowe, aged 14, who wrote your letter for you. The boy says you instructed him to ask only for Sheriff Marsh by name and no other official in that county. Is that correct?" "Your Honor." "Is that correct, sir?" "Your Honor, I—" "Answer the question, Mr. Calloway, or I will hold you in contempt on top of everything else you are facing this morning." Ezra Calloway closed his eyes. "Yes, it is correct. You sought the one man in Millbrook County whose testimony was already compromised. Yes or no?" "Yes." "Because you knew any other man in that county would have told you the charges were false." "Yes." A sound went through the hall. Not a gasp. Something lower. Something that belonged to 60 people realizing at the same instant exactly what they had stood up inside of on Sunday night. The judge went on. He read the depositions of the 3 hired men, all 4 of whom had in the 5 days since their capture turned on Ezra in ways that would have been comical if the cost had not been so high. He read the deposition of the Deputy Eli, who had come forward of his own accord on Monday morning and told everything he knew, and there had turned out to be a great deal he knew. He read the deposition of Sheriff Hollis, who had wept in his cell and asked for a priest, and then, having apparently gotten no absolution from God, tried to get some from the record, and had dictated a confession 4 pages long. By the time the judge was done reading, Ezra Calloway was a shape in a chair, not a man. "Mr. Calloway, stand up." "Your Honor, my leg." "Stand up, sir." He stood. "Ezra Calloway, I find you guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, conspiracy to suborn perjury, bribery of a public official, and attempted unlawful deprivation of liberty. I am remanding you to the Territorial Prison at Huntsville for a term of not less than 30 years. You will not die there only because the state of Texas has not authorized me to impose that sentence on the charges brought, but you will die there. You understand me? Your Honor." "Sit down, Mr. Calloway." Ezra Calloway sat down. The hall let out its breath. The judge then did something Clara had not expected. He called her to the front. She went slow with Lily's hand in hers because her daughter would not let go, and she was not going to make her. She stood in front of the judge with her child's fingers laced into her own. "Mrs. Hayes." "Your Honor, I have spoken to Judge Voss by wire this morning. He has asked me to convey to you on behalf of himself and such of the county of Millbrook as still has shame left in it, his deepest and most abject apology. He has asked me to tell you that he is old, and that he is sorry, and that if you will permit him the indignity of writing to you at whatever address you now keep, he would like to do so, because the memory of what that town did to you has kept him awake for 6 years. Clara's throat worked. Your Honor, I am not done, ma'am. Judge Voss has also issued this morning by wire a formal exoneration of you in the matter of the death of the infant Thomas Marsh. The charges are dismissed with prejudice. Your name is clean on the rolls of this state. Do you understand what I am telling you? She could not speak. Lily's hand tightened in hers. Mrs. Hayes. Yes, Your Honor, I understand. Good. Go sit down. You look like a woman who has been standing up for 6 years, and I do not propose to make you stand any longer in my courtroom. She went and sat down. Samuel put his hand over the back of hers on the pew and did not say anything, and that was right. The hall emptied slow. Ruth, the woman who had stood up first on Sunday, was one of the last to leave. She came down the aisle with her husband a step behind her, and she stopped in front of Clara, and her hands moved once and stopped and moved again. Mrs. Hayes? Ma'am? There ain't a word for what I said to you on Sunday. No, ma'am, there ain't. I stood up in front of my neighbors, and I called you a thing. I had no call to call you on the strength of a letter. A rich man read aloud. I am ashamed. I come to tell you so in front of my husband and my God, and whoever else is listening. Clara looked at her. A long moment. Ma'am, what's your name? Ruth. Ruth Pendleton. Mrs. Pendleton, I accept your apology. You do. I do. But I will tell you something. My daughter was in Miss Dottie's parlor on Sunday night listening through a wall. And she is 9 years old, and she heard a grown woman scream out witch about her mother. You want forgiveness from me, you got it. You want forgiveness from her, you come find her in a year. Not today, not this month, in a year. And you tell her yourself what you stood up and said, and you let her decide. Ruth Pendleton began to cry. Yes, ma'am, I will. I will, ma'am. Good, she went. Others came after her. A man who had been in the hall and had not spoken, but had not objected either. 2 women who had whispered at the general store. The preacher of all people who sat down on the pew beside Clara with his hat in his hands and said, Mrs. Hayes, I stood in a pulpit 3 weeks back, and I prayed for Samuel Carter's soul over an empty box, and I took Ezra Calloway's money for the prayin', without asking one question about where the body was. I am an old fool. Forgive me. I forgive you, Reverend. I don't deserve it. No, but you got it anyway. That's the whole point of it. He cried too. Clara began to think Red Creek was going to float away on the tears of its grown-ups before the week was out. They rode home to the ranch that evening. She called it home now in her own head, and the word did not feel as dangerous as it had 2 weeks ago. Elena had supper on. Lily ate 2 plates. Samuel ate 1, and then sat on the porch with Clara afterward, and for a long time neither one of them said anything. Samuel. Clara. I want to go to your wife's grave. He turned his head. Clara. Not to say anything to her. Not to ask her for anything. I want to pay my respects. She kept this house for you. She kept the man I owe my daughter's life to alive for 30-some years before I met him. I want to thank her. Samuel was quiet a long moment. All right. They walked out to the oak behind the barn. The stone was not large. Rebecca Ann Carter, 1843 to 1876, and her son Thomas, Samuel Carter, 1874 to 1876, beloved. Clara stood in front of it with her hands folded, and she did not speak out loud. Samuel stood a step behind her and also did not speak. After a while she turned. Samuel. Yes. She was a lucky woman. She was not Clara. She died at 33 of a fever in a bed I had bought her, and she never saw her son turn 3. Samuel, that ain't what I mean, and you know it. She was lucky in you. She spent her years with a man who still goes to her every Sunday and tells her about the week. Most women don't get that. Most women live and die, and nobody visits the stone. She had you. That is more than most. I am telling you that as a woman who knows." He did not answer for a long time. "Clara." "Samuel." "I ain't asking you anything tonight." "I know." "I ain't asking you anything next week either." "I know, Samuel." "But some month. Some quiet month when the dust settled and Lily has a school to walk to, and you have slept 100 nights in a row without a bad dream. Some month I may come sit on the porch with you and ask you something. All right? And you can say no." "Samuel Carter." "Yes." "I already know what I'm gonna say." "Don't tell me now." "I wasn't gonna." "Good." "Samuel." "Yes." "Walk me back to the house. Lily's gonna fall asleep on the kitchen table if we leave her with Elena much longer, and Elena won't have the heart to move her." He walked her back. The weeks went by. They went by in a way Clara had forgotten weeks could go by. The judge finished his business in Red Creek and rode out with Ezra Calloway, chained in a wagon behind him, and that was the last anyone in the county ever saw of Ezra Calloway in the flesh. Though his name came up for years after at kitchen tables, and was always spoken quiet, the way people speak the name of a sickness they have lived through. The Sheriff Hollis went with him. A new sheriff was appointed from 2 counties over a black-bearded man named Hickey, who had no love for any rich man anywhere and made it known. Tom's daughters came to the ranch for Lily to play with. Miss Dottie came for supper once a week and brought her pie. Elena taught Lily to make tortillas from scratch, and Lily taught Elena the words to a song about a river that Clara's grandmother had taught her 30 years ago in a kitchen 300 miles away. Samuel bought a second milk cow. Samuel hired 2 more hands. Samuel did not yet come sit on the porch and ask her anything. He came on a Sunday in October. The leaves on the oak had turned, and Lily was at Tom's with Tom's middle girl, and Elena was at church, and the house was very quiet. Samuel came out onto the porch with 2 cups of coffee and handed her one, and sat down on the step beside her and drank his own halfway down before he spoke. "Clara." "Samuel." "It's a quiet month." "It is." "Lily slept through the night last night." "She did." "You slept through the night last night." "How do you know?" "Because I didn't hear you get up." "Samuel Carter, you been listening for me to get up at night?" "Every night for 3 months, woman." "Oh." "Clara." "Yes, Samuel." "Will you marry me?" "Yes." He set his coffee down. "You said yes." "I said yes." Just like that. "I told you I already knew what I was gonna say. I've been knowing for 3 months. You're the slow one." Clara Hayes. Samuel Carter. "I love you, woman." "I know you do. I love you too. Drink your coffee." He laughed. It came out of him shaky. She had never heard him laugh quite like that. She set her own coffee down and took his hand between both of hers, and she sat with him on the step and watched the sun come up over the oak where his first wife was buried. And she felt no jealousy of that grave, because the man beside her had taught her in the time she had known him that a heart big enough to love one woman to the bone was a heart big enough to love another one after, and the loving of the second did not make the first any smaller. They were married in Miss Dottie's parlor 3 weeks later. Lily carried the flowers. The preacher, the same preacher who had prayed Samuel's body into the ground over an empty box, read the vows with tears running down his face, and nobody minded. Ruth Pendleton sat in the back row and did not speak and did not need to. Judge Voss had sent a telegram from Millbrook that morning, and Samuel read it aloud after the vows. "To my former ward and the finest human being, it has been my failure in life not to have defended more fiercely. May you be as happy now as you deserve to be always. Arlen Voss." Clara cried at that one. She did not try to hide it. They rode back to the ranch in a wagon at sundown. Lily asleep between them, with flowers still in her hand. Samuel did not speak for most of the ride. At the top of the last rise where the ranch house came into view with its lamps already burning for supper, he reined the team in and sat a long moment. Clara. "Samuel. Look at that." "I see it." You see that light in the kitchen window? I see it. That's Elena waiting supper on us. I know it is. I ain't seen a lamp burning in that window for somebody coming home since Rebecca. I want you to know that. I ain't seen it, and I did not think I would see it again, and I am seeing it now. And it is for you, and it is for the child between us. And I want you to know that I know it, and I will know it every night of my life from this one forward till the Lord takes me." Clara could not speak. She put her head on his shoulder. "Samuel Carter." "Yes, Clara." "Take me home." "Yes, ma'am." He took her home, and in the years that came after, through the seasons that rolled over that stretch of Texas prairie, through the first spring, when Lily went to school in a new calico dress through the summer, a second child came. A boy they named Caleb, after Clara's father. Through the winter, Miss Dottie passed in her sleep with her hand in Clara's and a smile on her face, through every birthday and Christmas and long summer evening on the porch. Clara Hayes, who had once been called a witch by a town that should have known better, who had once been dragged by her hair through a square in front of her own child, who had once stood in a sagging barn with a rope on her neck and thought of her daughter's name like a prayer. Clara Hayes learned a thing she had not believed was possible for a woman like her, in a country like this one, in a life as long and as hard as hers had been. She learned that a woman who pulls a dying man out of the dust does not know in that moment that she is pulling herself out too. She learned that mercy given freely to a stranger on a hot afternoon can reach back across years of running and hand a person the life they had stopped asking for. She learned that a town, even a town, can be brought to its knees by the truth, if the truth has a judge and a mother and a little girl standing behind it. She learned that love, real love, is not the story the songs tell, not a lightning strike, not a stranger on a white horse, but the slow, steady work of a man who listens when you say no, and waits until you are ready to say yes, and then builds you a house you are not afraid to sleep in. And on the last clear morning of her long life, lying in a bed in the house Samuel Carter had built bigger for her as the children came with her grown daughter on one side and her grown son on the other, and her husband's hand in hers, the way it had been for 31 years. Clara looked out the window at a sunrise coming up pink over the oak tree where Rebecca slept, and her own stone would soon go, and she said, clear and steady, the last words she ever spoke aloud on this earth. I ran for a long time, and then I stopped, and stopping saved me, and I would do every single day of it again. She did not run anymore. She was home, and she was loved, and she was free, and she was at last and forever. Clara Carter of Red Creek, Texas, a woman no town would ever call by another name again.